I work in a large office, one of those with glass partitions, in an environment that is always busy. Every day is full of meetings, phone calls, and spreadsheets, but there is an atmosphere of camaraderie among colleagues. The boss, Mr. Ricardo, is a charming and successful man, always elegant in his expensive suits and with a smile that melts anyone's heart. He's the type of person who commands attention without needing to say a word. That week, everyone was excited about the company's annual get-together. It was the most anticipated event of the year, where everyone could relax and have a little fun outside of the work environment. I was especially anxious, as I had felt a strange tension between Mr. Ricardo and me over the past few months. Exchanging glances, furtive smiles, and conversations longer than necessary became a routine. When I got home on Friday, my head was full of expectations and an anxiety I couldn't explain. I opened my wardrobe and started choosing an outfit for the party. I wanted something that was elegant but also sexy, something that would make him notice me even more. I ended up opting for a tight black dress, which highlighted my curves without being vulgar, and a pair of high heels that made me feel powerful. As I got ready, my thoughts wandered. Will he notice me? What if something happens? Am I prepared to deal with this? I put on some red lipstick, adjusted my dress one last time, and looked at myself in the mirror. I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The night promised to be unforgettable, and I couldn't wait to see what was to come. When I arrived at the party, the music was loud and everyone seemed to be having a good time. There was laughter, glasses clinking, and a vibrant energy in the air. I greeted some colleagues and poured myself a drink, trying to blend in and appear relaxed. But my eyes kept searching for Mr. Ricardo. And then, there he was, across the room, talking to some colleagues. He saw me and smiled, a smile that seemed to say more than words. The night was just beginning, and I knew something special was about to happen. The music played loudly, filling the room with a mix of lively rhythms that invited everyone to dance. The colorful lights flashed, creating a party atmosphere that seemed to transport everyone to a world where the worries of work disappeared. The room was decorated with balloons, streamers, and a table full of delicious food and a variety of drinks. I started circulating around the room, greeting colleagues and engaging in trivial conversations. Despite the lively atmosphere, my thoughts were focused on one specific point: Mr. Ricardo. The whole time I felt his eyes on me, a look that made my heart race. There was something electric in the air, a tension that was building by the minute. As I grabbed a cocktail from the drinks table, I felt a presence next to me. I looked, and there he was with a charming smile. "Good evening, Mariana. Are you having fun?" he asked, his voice soft and warm. My heart beat faster. "Yes, I am." "And you?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We started talking about trivial things like the music, the decor, and the jokes our classmates were telling. But behind the banal words, there was an undercurrent of unspoken emotions. Every look, every smile carried a subtext that only the two of us understood. As the night progressed, he got closer, and the conversation became more and more personal. We talked about our interests outside of work, our dreams, and even some frustrations. He told me about his passion for traveling and how he loved discovering new places. I shared my experiences, and without realizing it, I started opening up more than usual. At one point, he asked me to dance. The touch of his hand on my waist sent a shiver down my spine. We danced close together, our bodies moving in perfect sync with the music. His proximity, his body heat, made the world around us disappear. It was as if we were alone in that room, full of people. Every moment with him seemed to intensify the chemistry between us. The tension was palpable, and I knew something was about to happen. My expectations and anxieties mixed together, creating a whirlwind of emotions. The night was still far from over, and the feeling that we were on the verge of crossing an invisible line only increased. As the music faded and our bodies still moved together, he whispered something in my ear, something that made me blush and feel a rush of desire. The work get-together was turning into something much more personal and intimate, and I was about to find out where this night would take us. After the dance, the energy between us was undeniable. We decided to get a drink and went to the makeshift bar in the corner of the room. The place was packed, but it was as if there was a bubble around us, isolating us from the rest of the party. We ordered our drinks and continued talking, but now words seemed almost unnecessary. There was a silent understanding, a connection that spoke louder than any conversation. Suddenly, he suggested we go somewhere quieter, where we could talk without interruptions. My heart raced at the idea, but I knew I couldn't resist it. I agreed, and he led me out of the room, onto a terrace lit only by a few soft lights. The night was cool, and the view of the city was stunning. We stood there side by side, enjoying the landscape and each other's company. The silence was comfortable, but filled with expectation. He turned to me, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made me shudder. "Mariana, I wanted to tell you something," he began, his voice low and full of emotion. Before he could continue, I felt an irresistible urge. I took a step forward and touched his arm, stopping him. "I also have something to say," I whispered. And then, without thinking twice, I moved even closer and kissed him. The kiss was electric, full of all the accumulated tension. Her hands slid to my waist, pulling me closer as the world around us disappeared. Time seemed to stop, and all that mattered was that moment, that contact. There was a heat, a passion that we could no longer deny. When we finally broke apart, we were both panting, our hearts beating in unison. "I'm sorry, I couldn't help it," I mumbled, my voice shaking. He smiled, his gaze soft and understanding. "No need to apologize. I've wanted this too for a long time," he confessed, his hand caressing my face. We stayed there on the terrace, hugging each other and exchanging soft caresses. Every touch, every look seemed to deepen our connection even further. It was as if all doubts and anxieties had dissipated, leaving only desire and mutual understanding. We knew we were crossing a line, but at that moment, nothing else mattered. The unexpected approach on the terrace transformed the evening of celebration into something much more intimate and personal. The tension that had been building over the months finally found an outlet, and we were ready to find out what came next. After that intense kiss on the terrace, the atmosphere between us was charged with desire. We went back into the party, but it was as if a new world had opened up to us. Every look exchanged, every smile, carried a deep and secret meaning. We were in a bubble of intimacy that no one else could understand. A short time later, he approached me again. "Come, I want to show you something," he said, his voice low and full of promise. I felt a shiver of excitement, and without hesitation, I followed him down a dimly lit hallway to a small storage room. It was a simple place, with a few shelves and boxes, but at that moment, it seemed like the perfect setting for what was about to happen. As soon as the door closed behind us, he pulled me close and kissed me again, this time with even more passion. His hands explored my body, and I felt each touch like an electrical discharge. Our kisses were urgent, filled with a hunger that seemed impossible to satisfy. The sound of the party in the distance was just a distant murmur. We were completely absorbed by each other. That cramped space became a refuge, a place where we could express all our repressed feelings. He pressed me against the wall, and our bodies molded to each other, moving in a synchronized rhythm. There was a raw intimacy in our touches, a need for each other that we could no longer deny. I felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement building inside me. Every movement, every sigh, increased the intensity of the moment. We were breaking all the rules, but the feeling of danger only made it more irresistible. His warm breath against my skin, his hands firm on my waist. Every detail was engraved in my mind. "Mariana, I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured against my lips, his words sending a wave of heat throughout my body. "Me too, Ricardo," I replied, my voice full of desire. It was the first time we used our first names in such an intimate context, and it only reinforced how connected we were. That secret kiss, hidden from the world, was a moment of pure passion. It was as if all the time we spent desiring each other had culminated there in that small room. And although we knew that we would eventually need to return to reality for that brief period, we were completely surrendered to each other, forgetting all the consequences. When we finally broke apart, we were both panting, our clothes slightly disheveled. There was a sparkle in his eyes, a reflection of what I felt inside. We went back to the party, trying to look normal, but we knew something had changed forever. The night was still far from over, and that secret kiss was just the beginning of something much bigger. After the intensity of that secret kiss, I returned to the party with my heart racing in a mix of emotions. The music, laughter, and conversations around us seemed distant, as if I were in a dream. I tried to mix with my colleagues again, pretending to be normal, but my thoughts were racing. Guilt began to seep in, mixed with excitement. I thought about my husband, about the life we had built together, and a wave of regret hit me. What am I doing? I asked myself, feeling a stab of pain in my chest. At the same time, I couldn't deny how alive, wanted, and connected I felt with Ricardo in a way I had never experienced before. The party continued, but I felt divided. Every time I looked at Ricardo, I felt a whirlwind of emotions: desire, guilt, confusion. He also seemed to be struggling with his own feelings. Our eyes met frequently, and in each encounter, there was a mixture of passion and uncertainty. When the party finally started to slow down, I decided I needed a moment alone to clear my head. I left discreetly and went to the bathroom. There, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, trying to process everything that had happened. How did I get to this point? I thought, feeling the tears start to form. But at the same time, Ricardo's touch still burned on my skin, and I knew I couldn't just ignore what I felt. I returned to the party with a little more clarity, but still carrying the weight of internal conflict. Ricardo approached me again, now with a serious and worried look. "We need to talk," he said softly. I agreed, and we found a quieter corner where we could talk without being interrupted. He confessed that he was going through the same doubts and conflicts. "I can't stop thinking about you, but I know this is complicated," he said, his voice thick with sincerity. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "I feel that way too, but I don't know what to do," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We stood there in silence, trying to find a solution to the situation we found ourselves in. It was clear that the attraction between us was strong, but There were also many questions to consider. The tension between desire and responsibility was overwhelming, and we both knew that any decision we made would have significant consequences. The party ended, and everyone went home, carrying this weight on their shoulders. I spent the night awake, going over the events and trying to understand my feelings. The internal conflict was real and painful, but there was also a burning desire that couldn't be ignored. I knew that from that moment on, nothing would be the same as before, and I would need to face the consequences of my choices. The next day, I woke up with a heavy head and an even more confused heart. As I prepared for work, my mind was racing, trying to deal with the whirlwind of emotions. Breakfast with my husband was silent and uncomfortable. I was distracted, and he noticed. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice full of concern. I forced a smile and replied, "Yes, I'm just tired." But the truth was that I was stuck in an internal dilemma that I didn't know how to resolve. Upon arriving at the office, the atmosphere seemed different. Ricardo's every look, every interaction, seemed loaded with a hidden meaning. We both knew we needed to talk, sort out what had happened, and decide what to do from there. However, avoiding talking about it was no longer an option. During the morning, routine work tasks served as a temporary distraction. However, around noon, I received a text from Ricardo. "Can we meet in the meeting room at 1 p.m.? My heart skipped a beat, but I knew I couldn't postpone this conversation. I responded affirmatively and waited anxiously for the moment. When I entered the meeting room, he was already there, looking as worried as I was. I closed the door behind me and we sat down, the silence heavy between us. He was the first to speak. "Mariana, we need to be honest with each other and with ourselves. What happened yesterday was incredible, but also very complicated." I nodded, feeling the lump in my throat grow. "I know, Ricardo. I'm so confused. On the one hand, I feel a connection with you that I can't ignore. But on the other hand, we have our lives, our responsibilities." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Exactly. I don't want to destroy anything you've built, but I also can't pretend I don't feel anything for you. We need to make a decision, and whatever it is, it won't be easy." We were silent for a few moments, each lost in our own thoughts. Then, finally, I found the courage to speak out. "I think we need to take a step back and think about what we really want. Maybe some time apart will help us better understand our feelings and what we really want in our lives." He nodded, looking relieved, but also sad. "I think you're right. We need clarity before making any hasty decisions." We said goodbye with a tight hug, full of contained emotions. The following days were difficult. I kept my distance from Ricardo, trying to focus on my work and my personal life. I spent more time with my husband, trying to reconnect and rediscover what we had. It was a period of deep reflection, full of emotional ups and downs. After a few weeks, Ricardo and I met again. This time, the conversation was clearer and more objective. We both agreed that despite the intense attraction, our lives and commitments were more important. We decided to maintain a professional relationship and leave what happened as a special memory, but one that could not be repeated. The final decision was painful but necessary. I learned a lot about myself, my desires, and my responsibilities. The experience showed me the importance of being honest with myself and the people around me. And although the temptation was great, I chose to value and preserve the life I built with my husband. That work get-together changed my life in unexpected ways. And although it was a tumultuous chapter, I came out of it stronger and more aware of my priorities and the limits I needed to respect.